Well, hi.
Hi.
Congratulations on your dad's posthumous induction. What would he be saying right now? How would he be feeling?
Oh, he'd probably be saying it's about time. It's about time. He would be very happy to see this going on.
And how do you feel about it?
I am just, you know what, I'm in shock because I just found out that this was going on. And, you know, part of my childhood was always trying to understand who my father was. Then as an adult, you realize, you know, wow, my dad did something really big, but yet nobody else knew about it, you know? So to finally see this happening, it's so good. It feels great.
Now, have you followed in your father's footsteps at all?
You know, I kind of had no choice. Tried to do other things, and you know, even style of music. I'm even kind of cursed in a way that I trained classically in piano, and yet, you know, my mother tried so hard not to have rock and roll in the house, but you can't. You know, it's in the blood. I can't escape it.
Now, what do you think of these guys still playing after all these years?
You know, I think it's great. I certainly, if I had a band situation and I had, you know, been successful and I passed away, I would be, you know, somewhere else going, don't stop just because I'm not there. You know, I would want them to keep going because it's something that I started, you know. So in a way, I would imagine that my father, you know, would feel the same. So I think it's great. The more that they play, the better, because that means the more that he lives on, you know, the longer.
Exactly. Ooh, that just gave me chills. Yeah. And they still really keep him a part of it, because I've seen things where it's written Bill Haley's Comets.
And his Comets, yeah.
Yes, yeah, and his Comets. Yes, his name is still very much a part of it.
Yes, and then, you know, they do everything. It's really like a tribute. I mean, I know they're the band members from the group, but they're also sort of giving him, like, you know, his props, and it's a tribute band type of thing, because they even dressed the way that they did, you know, originally, which he started, you know, just basically out of not knowing how to dress, because they didn't know what the heck rock and roll was, you know, so they dressed like jazz musicians.
Yeah, it's pretty much just a little more rockin', but a little more still conservative in the dress.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed any of them with the little lick, though.
You know, I don't know what that was about. I don't know. I gotta ask my mom, you know. It must have been like a big turn on for her or something.
A little hair thing.
It's like, wow. Yeah, no. I have nothing to say in regards to that.
Do you listen back to your dad's work and have it send you in a certain musical direction?
You know, a lot of times. There's been several different times, too many to go into, but mostly, actually, what has inspired me or caused most of my inspiration, like if maybe I'm in a weird phase in my life, I don't know what to write about musically, and you're kind of drawing blanks. Well, I think back on his story, because he left his autobiography, you know, in these little microcassette tapes that he used to talk into daily right before he died. And I stumbled across that by accident. And so, like, when something like that happens to you, and being, you know, that I was so little when he died, I took it as a big sign, you know, and I'm going like, wow, you know. So I always pull from that for inspiration when I'm even if it's not songwriting, just in life in general. If I'm having a hard time, you know, I'll put a tape in, and then of his, and I'll just push play. Doesn't matter where in the tape it is, but he'll say something. It's so weird, like my dad's my own self-help guru.
That's awesome. Well, he's lived a lot of life experiences, especially being on the road.
Yeah. Oh, man, you would not believe the stories that he tells. And these are real stories, you know. This is stuff that really happened. I mean, hopefully one day, you know, the rest of the world will get to hear it, too.
Have you ever thought about putting a book out about it?
Yeah, actually, it's been a lot more difficult than you would imagine, because it's not out yet. But it will. I'm sure. You know, I believe there's a time and place for everything, and that's what's been going on. You know, I can't force it.
What kind of things do people say to you when they find out that you're the daughter of Bill Haley?
You know, you would think that they would say a lot, but not. It doesn't. Sadly enough, I don't get a lot of responses that seem like surprised or excited. you know, and it makes me sad because that just means that they're not aware of, you know, I even have to remind them sometimes. I don't go around saying, hey, I'm Bill Haley's daughter, but if it comes up, they're like, okay, and he was, you know,
What about
I
in
don't
a
remember.
situation like this, where the band's playing?
Completely different, because everybody's just like, oh, I loved your father, you know, I get that a lot. Like, oh, if I run into Little Richard, same thing. He's just like, your father was just so wonderful, and I just loved him, and blah, blah, blah. Every time he's like that. And so I know it's either a very extreme excited reaction, or it's a sort of like, can who? Can who? You know, 1, 2, 3 o'clock.
It must really pump you up, though, in there.
It does, simply because every time that happens, I get that feeling, you know, wow, my dad was so, forget that he was even my father. This person did something so huge, and he changed the course of music history forever. Everything as intense as, you know, thinking about the radio stations that we listen to. You know, there are times when I'll turn to my friends and I'll be like, do you realize that song would never have existed had it not been for Rock Around the Clock? You know? And they're going, oh yeah, huh? I said, yeah. That's big stuff.
That's huge influence. I just had what I was going to say, and that just distracted me from it. Oh, I know. What would you talk to your dad about musically if he was here? Like, what kind of questions would you ask him? Would you ask him about style or recording, or?
You know, I think I would want to know what he thought of what happened to music after the 50s, you know? Like, I'd like to know what he thought, you know? I mean, Dad, this is, I'd say, like, Dad, this is the product of your creation. What do you think of it? You like the way it turned out? I know there's a lot of crap out there, but sometimes there's some really good stuff, you know? And I would so love to know what his opinion on that
Is the rest of your family musically inclined?
You know, my brother happens to be a phenomenal classical guitar player. He who discovered it late in life because he had started out wanting to be, you know, Mr. G.I. Joe man. He wanted to be a soldier, which is so weird. Then he after graduation, I played guitar also and piano. As a little girl, I just played. It was what I could do for fun. And he, after he graduated from, he went to receive my father's, he went to the induction of the Hall of Fame. Okay, so he went to do that, and when he came back, I think he had Chuck Berry's phone number or something, like, you know, I was like, wow. And he called him, like, to my house. Chuck Berry called my brother. And I went, like, do you realize how incredible that is? And you don't even like to play guitar. I can't believe you. You know, I was so jealous. And so finally, like about a week or two later, he's like, well, you think you could teach me some guitar chords? I taught him like D and G, and then after that, forget it. He's 4 years older. He probably was about 16, 17. No, 17. He was about to graduate. So about 2 or 3 weeks later, he had surpassed me, and what had taken me, you know, about 4 years. He started a band. He was like in rock and roll, playing The Who. You know, they only did The Who music. And then after that, he actually got accepted into a university in a music program. He was playing by ear. He didn't even know how to read music, you know. And he is so good now.
Incredible.
Phenomenal.
All right, my last question is, what do you remember about your dad?
There are just only a few memories. I mean, I remember that he loved to get up super early in the morning, and once a week, I think, sometimes twice, we would drive to the ocean, and he had the intention of going fishing, but we would never make it. We would just like get distracted, and we'd end up doing something else. But he'd take the fishing poles, and we would go. And then on occasion, he would go deep sea fishing, and he would come back with so much fish. But I hated fish. And no one in the family liked it, so my mother would have to go, you know, give it away with the neighbors. So
Maybe it was just the challenge of catching
I think so. I think he must have been very fond of challenges because, I mean, hell, you know, they told him he was too old for country western music and he'd never be Hank Williams. So he said, fine, I'll just create my own new style music.
And
Look what he did.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Do you watch your dad's films a lot, or anything on his film?
Well, you know that I didn't even know he had. I didn't know that they existed. See, well, you know, I was so little, and I guess a lot of people just figured I knew. But there is a lot of stuff that I'm still discovering. You know, I didn't realize that he had. I knew of Blackboard Jungle naturally, but what's the other one? There's Rock Around the Clock, right? And then I had a fan 2 or 3 years ago. She sent me like all of the videos, and that was the first time I watched it. And I was going like, wow, that's my dad. How weird. You know, it's different when you see a musician act.
Did
It's
he
weird.
look in those movies or films? Did he look like that? Is that what you remember him looking like?
I remember him heavier, and you know, I remember silly things like, you know, that he had dandruff. Like, I remember that. Like,
The human thing.
yeah. I mean, like, I would always sleep with him. I was such a chicken as a baby. I couldn't sleep alone, so I would sneak back into my parents' bed. When he would wake up so early, I just remember that I'd see dandruff on his pillow. How weird, right? And I would think, that's snow. Such a creepy little kid. Yeah, I remember the human stuff. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I don't remember anything about. I didn't know he was a musician. I just thought that he like disappeared for a month at a time, and then he would come back with like presents from Australia. I don't know where he got it.
That's great.
All right, thank you.
It's an honor.
Is this one?